Well, we're getting taking a little road trip probably. We're gonna drive the ghost truck. So I checked the oil this morning, and it's fine. I'm gonna check the air and the tires. I checked them a couple of weeks ago, or probably. Oh, here comes a train. We're gonna wait a second. Okay, where's it at? Oh, check air and the tires, check the oil. I mentioned this morning, or some point, I'm thinking about changing oil brands, and just because I like the numbers I'm seeing when I look through their statistics. No other reason. I haven't had any trouble with my oil. We've always ran Shell Rotella T in the diesel in the ghost truck, and 1540 year round, but we're thinking about changing to a full synthetic. A company by the name of Schaefer's out of Illinois. It's over by St. Louis, I believe. He's kind of got my attention when I was talking to him at the four-wheel drive jamboree. So with that being said, I'll show you what we're dealing with when we change oil in the ghost truck. So I'm going to sit down here on this spare and tell you a story about the oil. And yes, I am running a spare. It's in the back of the truck, tied up side of the truck. So you're probably thinking, why in the world would a guy want to switch brands of oil at 415,000 miles? Switch types of oil? That's a good question. It was actually brought on a couple, 3 years ago, about I don't know, maybe 30,000 miles ago, or maybe not quite that, but the Chinese virus brought it on. You're thinking, what's that got to do with anything? Well, in case you've been living under, in case you haven't been out in the real world and been living under a rock, that had a lot of effect on a lot of things. So anyway, I'd always ran full petroleum based oil, Shell Rotella T 1540, and my truck takes 15 quarts. So with that being said, 15 quarts consist of 2.5 gallon jug, which makes 10 quarts, a gallon, which gives us 14 quarts, and then on the gallons, it's marked off in quarts and liters. So you just add another quart, or basically, which I've done since I don't know, 75,000 miles or so, I've added a quart of synthetic Lucas oil stabilizer every oil change to make that quart up. So I would just buy 2.5 gallon jug and a gallon and a quart of Lucas. I don't think I have one here to show you, but anyway, that's what I'd run. So when the Chinese virus came around, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, you couldn't get the 2.5 gallon jugs in the petroleum based oil anywhere. Literally nowhere I could find it in central Indiana, because I'd always gotten at Rural King or O'Reilly's once in a while. Normally Rural King in Lafayette didn't have it. Rural King in Avon didn't have it. Rural King up at, I believe it was Monticello, we were up there, checked, they didn't have it, and I forget where the other Rural King, but nobody had it. So did a little research, and I thought, well, here's what I'll do. We will switch to this, which is a semi-synthetic Rotella. That means it's partial synthetic and partial petroleum based. Could find it. 2.5 gallon jugs, gallons, whatever, no issues. no problem. So we made a few oil changes that way. Did not see any issues. You know, back in the old days, they'd say, well, if you'd switch to synthetic or something like that, you would use more oil, or you'd have oil leaks or whatever. None of that materialized. So I'm happy. It's a little more money than petroleum based, but you know, okay. 400,000 miles, 450,000 miles, it really doesn't matter. So that leads me to the current situation. The current situation, can't find the semi-synthetic, the T5, in the 2.5 gallon jug. I didn't look too hard. Been to Rural King, a couple Rural Kings. They haven't had it. So I've made another decision. Now the decision is I switched to full synthetic, which is T6 in 1540. I'm on my first run our first oil change. Got about, I don't know, 900 miles on it. I checked the oil a while ago. I mean, it's clean, looks good. Hadn't used a drop, which normally I don't use any oil speak of. So we'll probably stay with synthetic. And it's a little more money yet. But like I said before, you know, I'm running one truck. We may switch the wife over to whatever we end up using on her truck. It won't be 1540. It's, I think, 530. But probably gonna make the switch to possibly another brand, which, like I said, is Schaefer's. I talked to him at the 4-wheel drive jamboree rep, and they made me think they really had something to offer. Showed me some statistics, gave me some literature, and if what they told me was correct and the numbers they gave me, if nothing else, it'll pay for itself in fuel savings, or partially pay. It's not going to pay for itself. Offset some of the cost in fuel savings and mileage, and it looks like possibly a lot better somewhere at is. So we may give it a shot. The only problem is I can't pick it up at O'Reilly's, Rural King, Tractor Supply, Napa. As near as I can tell, the closest dealer is Kokomo, but they did tell us they would ship it, but you have to buy case lots, so you spend a little more up front, but it may pay for itself. I haven't decided yet. So that's where we're kind of at on the oil situation. It's not a big deal. We weren't, like I said, we weren't having any trouble. But if I can get a few more miles out of the old ghost truck, I'll try it. You know, so that's kind of where we're at on the oil situation. Now I'll show you what we're doing with checking air in the tire if you never checked the air in the tires on a dually. So if you're checking air on a dually, front tires are no big deal. The valve cap is right here on there. Pretty easy to get to. A little tricky to get the cap off, but not too bad. Change it, take it off, no big deal. Now the rear, it's a little different story. Outside duals right there, real handy. Now wait a minute. How do we get to that rear inside dual? That's crazy. No way. How are you going to check the air in that? Well, I'll show you here in a second. So I don't know if you can see it, but back in there is the valve stem for the inside dual. You're going to say, how in the world do I get in there? Well, I'll show you. It's really not a big deal. First of all, you just leave the cap off the inside dual. Never put it on. That's the first thing you do. So it's really no issue, no conundrum, is that the right word? Because you use a tool like this. See that straight end tire gauge? And then the air chuck is equipped the same. It's got a straight end on it. So you can just go right in there and put air in the tire. Not a problem. I don't know if I can let this down and show you or not. I'll see here. Well, maybe we can kind of get it here. I'll get in there and get this one. It's 60 pounds, and that's what I'm trying to run, is 60 pounds. Yeah, it was about 61, so I'm going to call that good. This front tire had to put a couple, 3 pounds in it because it was a little bit low, about 56 pounds. Okay, outside, this one runs a little low for some reason. Okay, it's about 52, almost 56, so it's about like that front tire. I'll put a little in it. And, so you can see right here, 50, 60 pounds right there, so I'll put a skosh more in there. Match the inside one. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. Hope that gives you a little insight. Air is important. Don't be one of those people who has a tire come apart on the interstate. It's usually because of lack of maintenance, which means checking air in the tires, keep them up to snuff. Most of these new cars have monitors that'll tell you when they're low, but there's a plus or minus there, so just run them where they're supposed to be ran. I've got areas to play in on this. I can run up to 80 pounds, and sometimes I will. If I'm going to be pulling a camper or a trailer, I'll pump the air pressure, but right now I'm trying 60 pounds of all 6 tires, and seems to be working pretty well. And so I get the air checked in the tires on the other side, and I think we're good to go. I put the washer fluid reservoir, that's another thing. I'm persnickety on. I wash the windshield every time I get fuel. It just makes driving a whole lot nicer when you can see out the windshield. As crazy as that sounds, So anyway, that's it for right now. If I think of something else, I'll get you back on here. Now, one thing I noticed, I was checking air in the tires, and I'll show you what I'm looking at, which kind of bothers me. But here it is. If you can see that weather checking, those cracks, that kind of bothers me. I'll have to look and find the date on these tires or find the receipt. But the other outside dual does not seem to have that issue, so I don't know why this one does. I'll have to get hold of my guy at Discount Tire. That's where we buy almost all of our tires. See what he thinks, but that kind of bothers me. Do not want a tire failure. I've had one tire failure on Interstate 70, and that is not a fun place to have a tire problem. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Not super concerned, just because the other tire didn't show that. But you know, it's something to be worried about. You don't want to have a tire failure, you know, because I am a pretty valuable cargo, but more importantly, I'll have people with me that would be considered more valuable. The missus, kids, grandkids. So you just can't take a chance on that. And then also, if you have a tire failure, you can get somebody else on the highway involved that has no idea or does not have a clue, and it's none of their business if you have a tire problem unless you take them out. So it's a concern. So we'll do some investigating and see what we got going on with that. I know, I don't know what that was, some kind of diesel. I know for a fact that the bookkeeper would love to have to buy 4 rear duals for this truck, because they're almost giving them away. So with that being said, I think that's all for right now. If I think of something else, I'll give you a holler. So if you don't know, you may be thinking to yourself, I just happened to think of this, where do I get those trusty Trick tire chucks and air gauges to make it easier to check the duals on the truck? I'll tell you what, it's pretty simple. Any reputable auto parts will have them. Now these came from James Auto Parts right uptown here. It's where I buy everything I possibly can, because it is the greatest auto parts in the world, in the free world. Not that I'm partial, but I say that with all confidence. So with that being said, here again is what it looks like. I think this gauge goes up to 120 pounds. I forget what it goes up to, which is, you know, you're up there in over the road truck territory. I mean, 80 pounds is max on my tires, which is a lot. Oh, something else while I'm thinking about it. If you're on the road, if you're driving a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton truck, most air stations, like, you know, you pull up and get gas and they got the thing you put 50 cents in or whatever it is, does not go over like 40 pounds. So if you got a low tire on a truck, 1 ton or 3/4 ton, you can't go in there and put air in your tire. You can't put enough air in your tire. So keep that in mind if you got one of these trucks. But you can go to, like I say, we buy our tires at Discount Tire. You can go there and pull in, and they've got an air check station. They'll check. You don't have to get out of the vehicle. They'll say how many pounds you want, and you just tell them, and like on the truck, and they set their machine, and it'll put 60 pounds. That's all it'll put in, 60 pounds. Kind of takes the guesswork out for them, and the responsibility out for them, or for car or whatever. But keep the air checked in your tires. It's important. It's easier nowadays, like I said, with the monitors that most of the newer stuff have. The Mrs. trucks, you know, has the tire monitor, and we've had one tire pick up a nail when we were in Washington State, or a screw, I forget what it was, and we had a low tire, and that the monitor is what clued us in before it got low enough that we had to take it, and we took a Discount Tire in Washington, and got the tire repaired. So it's important. It's important. If anybody wants to know, I don't know if you can see it, but the old Ghost truck has 415, 839.7 thousand miles. That's 415, 839.7. So you can make them last, take care of them. I think I just heard the missus pull up. Anyway, if you're wondering what that is, back in the day when this truck was brand new, I think we had 8 days, we added a performance chip. We added a K&N, or we had an oil soaked air breather, and we changed exhaust and put a great big, the muffler on it, you could put your arm through it, and we pretty much have ran that till recently. We eliminated the muffler and added 4-inch straight pipe from the turbo clear out the back. Well, it turns out the side of the bed like the original equipment, but no muffler. And then recently we did have to replace the K&N oil filter or air filter. It was starting to really get weather checked bad, and they replaced it, no charge. And then I went off the deep end, and at the 4-wheel drive jamboree we updated our performance chip. We now have a program in. So now, do you like my Indiana State Fair hat? Pioneer Village. Yeah, that's what it's all about. The best show in the world, in the free world. So I've got the best show in the free world, the best auto parts in the free world. See what else we got here. So anyway, get back to the chip. 4-wheel drive jamboree. Last year, we talked with 5-Star last year. Told him I was thinking about changing the performance chip. He'd worked with us before on some other projects. They're very good. I usually work with Josh from 5-Star. He's real good. So we've done a couple of projects, 3 projects with them. Done really well. So anyway, I talked to him last year, and he was kind of hesitant. You know, he knew my truck. He knew we'd had good luck with the 60-horse chip we had in it, which was not theirs. It was actually a company called Western Diesel Performance. They're no longer in business. But it's done a good job all these years. So then I talked with him, and he's, I don't, it's kind of one of them deals. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. He was kind of hesitant, so I had to let it go. So this year at Jamboree, I went to him and said, "Hey, Josh, I think I want to make some changes." He said, "Okay, let's do it. What do you want?" So what we ended up with, like I said, originally we were running a 60-horse chip, performance chip, which changed shifting points, just made it all better. And for all you guys, skeptics out there, anybody that's not running a tuner in their vehicle should have their head examined. Just saying. It'll make them run better. It'll make performance better. It'll make the longevity better. And it doesn't hurt a thing. It does not affect EPA, your pollution stuff. Everything's kept within perimeters. It just changes the performance aspects, because you have to remember all these vehicles have some type of computer on them, and they're tuned for the masses. You know, nobody from Ford called me and asked me what I wanted, how I wanted my dually tuned. Nobody called the missus. We bought her truck and we know how we wanted it tuned. You just got what you got. Everybody's in the same boat. So they just kind of weed all the crap out and make them better, still within the perimeters. So anyway, back to the tune. 60-horse tune originally. So a couple things I wanted. I wanted, because my truck is a 3-speed with the 4th speed is overdrive. So there's a gap when it leaves 3rd, which is direct drive, goes into overdrive. There's a little bit of a gap there where you lose some performance. So I just wanted to play with that a little bit. So what I ended up with was a 65 horse tune. He changed those shift points a little bit. Initial takeoff, when you touch the throttle, it was really touchy before with the programmer. He's kind of smoothed that out. It's not that way now, but but the throttle's right there just like it was before. But it's not scary as far as somebody's not used to drive it. If you touch the throttle before, it was going. Now he's kind of softened that up a little bit, which makes it easier to drive. So we got that. We got an 80 horse tune, and we got an 80 horse tune with the changed shift pattern from 3rd to overdrive. And then he's got a 100 horse tune in it, which is just strictly a performance tune, which is what I'm currently running right now. I run the 65 horse the day we put it in. When I went back to the Jamboree, we tried the 80 horse tune, and I said, well, I'd like to have that shift point taken up a little bit. So he gave me that. He got the 80 horse that was in it, and then the 80 horse, changing that shift point from drive to overdrive, and then he put the 100 horse tune in, and that's what I'm running. So I ran all three. Actually, I've not ran the 80 horse with the shift point change. Other than that, I ran them all. Tell the difference. Not a lot in the 65 horse, other than the initial takeoff, but I could tell the big difference in the 80 horse and a really big difference in the 100 horse. And so far, the EGTs have not went up anything. They've not went up at all. I've not pulled anything yet, so we'll play with that when we hook to the camper or hook to whatever. And of course, not pulled any big on hills other than just the one on there at Eagle Creek. That's pretty long pull coming out of Speedway on 74, but you know, I can't tell any difference. We did check the mileage on this. Well, we check it every tank full, and the last tank full, which is when we're playing with these programs, probably half that tank was when we're playing with the program, and it was hold on a second. The missus said the mileage was 14.92, which is about as good as we've ever gotten. We've pushed it over 15 a couple times, but 14.92 is good, and that's with playing with the different programs. So well pleased with that, gaining performance and not losing any mileage, and that's getting on it a few times just to see what it would do. So, you know, and it'll run faster than you ought to be running it. I'll tell you that. But so well satisfied with that. So anybody out there with a vehicle, you should think about getting it tuned, because you will see, when I say performance, I don't mean just fast. I mean performance gained by your shifting patterns, initial takeoffs, and just road manners. It'll improve it, especially if you get with a good tuner. And 5-star out of South Carolina, you can go on the interweb and find them 5-star, and they've got tunes specifically for specific vehicles, or they will custom tune them if you ask them like we did, specifically some things you want, they can work that. And they can do all that virtually over the phone. Once you buy the programmer and they put a tune in it, they can mail it to you, and you can do it sitting in your driveway. It's pretty easy step process. And if you have any questions, you just call them. But the programmer walks you through it. Basically, what it does, it download whatever. If you're putting a tune in, it downloads your stock tune and saves it in the programmer, and then it uploads the new program and then puts it in your computer system. You know, it's 10 or 15 minutes at the most. And then if you ever need to change it or want to change it or want to take it out, you just plug back in, which is an OB1 or OB2 connection underneath their dash. I think some of them now is underneath the hood. They've tried, the government's tried to lock us out. We won't get into all that crap, but they've tried to lock us out on a lot of that stuff because they don't want us to mess with that stuff, because they like everybody in a box. I won't get into that, but anyway, so you still have your stock program, and it's in the tune, and you can put it back anytime you want, and you can keep that program. If you get rid of your vehicle, put the stock tune back in it, keep your programmer, and they'll adjust you. There's a cost. I don't know what it is. There's a cost on that, but the initial cost of buying the programmer itself, which is about the size of a transistor radio. Now, how many out there that ever knows what a transistor radio looks like? That's about what the size it is, and pretty simple. Like I said, everybody should be running a custom tune for what you like. And if you don't think you need anything, then I guess you don't enjoy driving as much as I do, because it makes the driving more enjoyable and makes the longevity. I can attest to that. I've got full confidence the longevity will pay for itself. See ya. God bless you. God bless America. Say a prayer for somebody today. See ya.